Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. Very happy to have you here with me today. Just waiting for the full hour to start. And then we can begin. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, dependent on where you're joining me from today. It's a wonderful day to create some awareness, and this is exactly what we're going to do today. I will be with you for the next, let's say, 30 to 45 minutes, and then I'll open the floor for any questions and comments that you have. And I hope plenty of those will be coming in. The topic for today's webinar is executive presence for the next level and how senior leaders build influence and impact with confidence. Now you can see that I added a little notebook right here. Just as a little nudge for you, if you like to take notes throughout the webinar, I also included a few reflection questions for you that you can take in. Hi, Jeshri. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining. So feel free to get something that you can take a few notes with, and let's begin. I've been building up and improving HR processes, mostly for tech startups, for about 15 years. In the past. Now that's behind me, but during that time, I actually experienced that what is the absolute key to success, especially for C-levels, board members, is communication. The way how you are entering a room, whether you can influence people, whether you can impact people, how easily people want to follow you and the ideas that you have. This is also called executive presence. Now, when I moved to Dubai about 5 years ago with my wonderful husband and my kids, I decided to become a coach and a trainer. So that's what I'm doing full time now. But this topic of executive presence and the need for communication continued like a red thread throughout everything that I'm doing. When I talk to mostly executives who are in a director level, sometimes in a C-level, and they want to take the next level up, their biggest questions revolve around how can I increase or even build a better executive presence? And what they want to know about is how can I read the room better? How can I understand my audience that I'm talking to? How can I be seen as an expert in the field that I'm in? How can I basically attract people to come to me when they have a question around the things that I do? That I naturally build a followership of people who come to me. I want to be confident when I present in a room full of senior leaders. Senior leaders oftentimes being the general managers, the C-levels, board members, or to government. So how can I be confident when I enter a room filled with people who represent these roles? But also, I want to build immediate buy-in for my ideas and suggestions. And the question always is, how can I do that? And that's exactly what we're here today for, to find out. So let's take a step back first. When you are starting your career, it's more or less easy to build an impactful reputation for yourself. How do you do that? It's when you are entering your first role or even your second job, and you know exactly what the task at hand demands from you. You have the technical knowledge, you have the factual knowledge, you know exactly how to deliver the work that is needed for the role that you are having in that moment, on that day, in that year, in that company, in that team. Through your knowledge, through your technical knowledge, and the way how you are approaching projects, you can create reliability, meaning people around you, people in your organization, your stakeholders, they know that that they can rely on you. They know when they give you a task, it's being sent back on time. It's completed in the quality that they've been asking for. Reliability is definitely a very important trait that helps you to be promoted. Everyone wants to have a boss or a senior manager who is reliable. And then, of course, lastly, what is important, especially in early career growth, is the actual output. I guess most of you, if not everyone in this room, has heard this expression, going the extra mile. That's oftentimes what it's about in your early career as well. Prove yourself. Show that you are someone who is willing to go the extra mile, who is willing to spend extra hours in the office, if you will, who is taking on additional projects, who is working beyond the scope of the actual role that you have. That's what helps you accelerate your career growth, especially in the early stages of your career. But what happens if you have outgrown those early stages? What happens now that you are becoming a more senior leader? Now it's no longer about, let's call it, the tangible output of your work. Now it's much more about the presence that you have. Who are you being perceived as a leader as? What do people see in you when you are entering a room, when you are leading the team? It's also about how you are able to judge mostly complex situations. How are you making decisions? How are you judging what's important right now and what is not? How are you setting priorities? And how are you making sure that your team is able to follow through with the priorities that you've set? How are you judging, for example, the abilities of the team that you have at hand? And how do you know when to make changes in any direction? What's also very important for your next level leadership is influence, especially because we're looking at a strategic level here. It's very important that you are able to bring across and to basically sell the strategic ideas that you have for your team, for the department, for the organization as a whole. When you're able to convince people, but also to negotiate well in important conversations, then you are building influence. And that is a key trait for senior leadership. Same goes for emotional steadiness, is what we call it when you are a leader who is very aware of your own emotions to begin with. We also call this emotional self-management. What that basically means is that when you're entering, let's say, this room filled with these senior managers, and you might be a little bit nervous, you might really hope that this is going to end very well because you have a lot of hopes for the outcome of this meeting, then there is an emotional impact on you. Your strength in that moment will be to be aware of what is happening with you emotionally. That you are noticing, okay, I'm starting to get nervous. How does that show on the outside? What does it mean for my ability to deliver my presentation when I'm nervous? Is it going to be more difficult for me to find the right words? Will I be starting to speak so fast that nobody can understand me? What happens to my stance? Maybe I am starting to slouch. Maybe I'm not able to stand up straight, put my shoulders back, and really show that I am confident. Understanding which emotional state you are in, but then to manage your emotions by, for example, allowing yourself to take a deep breath and calm down, to be ready to enter that room and to be your best self. That's emotional steadiness, as much as moments where, for example, it might be emotionally taxing in a sense that it's very stressful for you. Take a high-stake conversation where it's about making a decision, for example, of how many people you would have to let go in your department. Or when you have to cut budgets, what does that mean for your operations? Those conversations are extremely important for your ability to perform well in your job. Being able to control your emotions in situations like this will be a big game changer for you, because you will then be able to stay clear-headed and to bring across the message that you want to bring across. Strategic visibility is one of the many, but one of the also very important traits for next level leadership. It's no longer about being operationally great. Being great at operations, being great at doing your day-to-day job, as in understanding what needs to be done next, conducting that task, moving on to the next, empowering your team to do the same. This is what you needed to do until today. Now that you're entering next level leadership, that changes. Now you need to understand a much more complex environment around you. It's no longer just your team or your department. When you're in next level leadership, you need to understand not just what's going on in the entirety of the organization, but you need to understand what are the impacts on our organization from the outside. What's the impact of specific stakeholders that we have? The impact of the geopolitical situation, as we all know very well right now. So having the strategic visibility, this clarity, you can also call it, is another very important trait for senior management. If you have any questions at any point in time, please feel free to put them in the comment box. I'm more than happy to pick up later. So let's take a look at what you can do to reach that next level leadership, to reach these traits and to be able to become the leader that you want to be. For one, we talked about self-awareness. Self-awareness is directly related to, for example, emotional steadiness. Self-awareness also means the awareness of how others actually experience you. Do you actually know how you come across? Do you know what other people would describe you as? When was the last time that you've actually asked someone around you for immediate feedback on that? For example, when you delivered a presentation or when you met someone for the first time in front of others. How do you come across? For example, for me, a couple of years ago, I was told that when somebody sees me for the first time, I come across as arrogant. And that shocked me because the last thing that I want to come across as was arrogant. But it also made me curious because I wanted to understand how that is possible, that my intention is to come across as very open-minded, as welcoming, as warm. And then the one feedback that I receive is I come across as arrogant. So when I dug a little bit deeper and I understood more, it turned out that I was seen as arrogant because I immediately involved myself in the conversations. I took a part of the stage. I wanted to be part of what was happening in that moment. And I was instantly, more or less without invitation, sharing my knowledge, my insights, my perspectives. And this is what caused that I was being seen as arrogant. And that was extremely valuable feedback for me, just so that I was aware of how I can come across, especially if that is the last of my intentions. So I started to work on that, and I didn't enter the stage without invitation. Now I'm staying a little bit more in the background. I'm basically waiting to be invited in that conversation. And I have to admit, for a little while, and then it reaches a point where I'm bringing myself in proactively because there's still a lot that I want to contribute. But this is just one example. This is really around how are you being experienced by others? And how does that fit, or how does it match the way that you want to be experienced, that you want to be perceived? So that would be the number one thing that you can start doing right away today. Ask a few people and ask them, how do I come across? Not just when people already know you and they've been working with you for a while, but also people who, for example, you've just met recently, maybe a new colleague, maybe a new peer. Ask them, how do I come across? What's the first impression that you had of me? Because we all know first impressions are extremely important, and many times, unfortunately, you can't undo first impressions. So this is a great way to start working on your self-awareness when it comes to how are you being perceived by others. Another extremely important part, if not the more important part for executive presence, really is you knowing yourself. What are your strengths? What are your blind spots? And you might be saying, well, if they weren't my blind spots, then I would know about them. But because they're called blind spots, I can't see them. And yes, you're absolutely right. The magic around blind spots really is that, again, this is something where you can ask others for feedback and they will bring something to your attention that you didn't know before. But now that it's being brought to your attention, This is where you can work with it. So it's either asking others for feedback, but you could, for example, also take personality assessments. I developed an online course for self-awareness that is actually integrating 3 different personality assessments for different aspects of how you show up. For one, with your energy levels. On the other hand, how do other people perceive you? And thirdly, with your intercultural profile. So assessments can also give you a fantastic overview of the blind spots that you have. And they give you a starting point for how to work on these blind spots and turn those into awareness. And through that, something that you can consciously work with and on. The last bit, triggers, that is something that all of us have. They show up uninvited. They are managed and steered entirely through our subconscious. A trigger could, for example, be that when you are entering, let's go back to that example we used earlier. You are entering a room full of senior managers and you are seeing someone who you've seen before in a meeting that went awfully wrong. The trigger now is that you are directly connecting this person that you've seen before to the negative outcome of that past meeting. So what happens inside of you is that you might be starting to protect yourself. Or you might be saying, okay, no, this is absolutely not good. Now this meeting is also going to be awful because that same person is sitting here in that room. So with a trigger, we are initiating subconsciously emotional reactions, and oftentimes through that, a specific narrative that runs through our mind. And this narrative is directly impacting how we are going to show up in the next moment. The decisions that we're making, the words that we're choosing, the way how we are communicating. Whether we are very confident, there can also be positive triggers, or if we lose all of our confidence and we become very nervous. All of those are, let's call them outputs of triggers. And one very important aspect of self-awareness is to understand these triggers. First of all, understanding, when does this trigger show up? How does it show up? What does it do for me? And then once you're aware of this trigger, you can begin to work with it. You will be able to anticipate, okay, there's a situation where I might get triggered. What will I do when I notice that that trigger is coming through? And then you're building your own little roadmap of how to, allow me that word, you can beat your trigger and you can get the upper hand and manage the situation exactly in the way you want it to be managed. So the second part here after self-awareness, of course, is executive presence. And we've tackled that a little bit earlier, right? We talked about executive presence, meaning how you show up in high stakes moments, how you show up in these very critical conversations, but also how you show up in a room full of people. For example, when you have to hold a big presentation in a town hall meeting in your organization. Executive presence is simply also how people are perceiving you. They might be seeing you as a leader who is absolutely knowledgeable, a wise person that people love to go to because they know that you are a leader who cares. When they have a problem or a question, they know they can come to you. That could be executive presence. You can also connect that to the phrase leadership image. Executive presence is the most powerful when you have the ingredients of clarity, calmness, and credibility. So these are the 3 main pillars for your executive presence that you can start to build on. One key question here always is clarity. What does that mean for me personally? How clear am I at the moment around what I want to achieve next, around what I need to do, around the expectations my stakeholders have towards me? Then next, calmness. How calm am I generally? Is it easy for me to stay calm? Or when I'm upset or nervous, how easily can I find my way back into calmness, and how do I do that? And then lastly, credibility. How credible am I? Is what I am saying based on facts or just my own opinion? Do I have a good balance between the two? When I communicate, the words that I am choosing, do they come across as credible? When I am presenting or discussing something, do people believe what I'm saying? And you can already hear through the way that I'm phrasing this that this is a mixture of how you are perceiving yourself and how others are perceiving you. So again, there is an opportunity for you to go and ask for feedback. The last one is impact, so that you're being felt beyond your task. You're being felt beyond what you're currently working on in this moment. But you are creating impact when people know this is an important subject, an important topic. We want you to be part of this. We want you to be part of this project, for example, of this group. We want you to be part of this committee, for example, because you are someone who can create impact. You are shaping decisions and momentum for the people around you. So let's start with your self-awareness. I'm giving you 3 questions here, and then I'll just pause for a few seconds for you to just write them down, take a screenshot, or maybe instantly answer those for yourself. Complete these sentences for yourself. The first one being, at my best, people experience me as. The second question, under pressure, I tend to. And lastly, to move to the next level, I need to strengthen. I hope that this was a good start for you to go into a little bit of self-awareness and self-reflection. I'm very aware that, especially for busy executives, there's barely ever time to think about questions like these. If you're honestly asking yourself, when was the last time that you took, let it just be 5 minutes, to sit in peace and quiet and just ask yourself about things like this? What is really important for me to do next? In that last critical meeting, how did I actually show up? Was that how I wanted to show up? What could I have done differently? And what do I want to do differently next time that I'm in a similar meeting? So this was a first opportunity for you to just take a few moments and start asking yourself. One question, or let's say one challenge that many of my clients bring in is around how is it possible that I am working very hard and I am always delivering the results that people are looking for, and I am being praised for the quality of my work, and yet it's not me who gets the next promotion? Why is it my colleague who was just promoted to general manager? Why is it my peer who got that job that I really wanted and my boss knew that I wanted that job? Well, and as you can imagine, that can depend on many, many factors, because ultimately it's always an individual situation. But what can oftentimes be the reason is, for example, that you are respected as a leader, but you probably don't have enough impact, or you don't influence enough, which is why people respect you, but it's not your name that comes up when people are looking for the right person to join that committee, the perfect person to get that promotion. This is the part that's extremely important for you. How can you make yourself memorable? How can you make people think of you when they don't see you? How can you make sure that it's your name that comes up when your boss or anybody else is looking for the right person for this job? That's directly related to the next one, which is being capable, but not visible enough. So how can you bring yourself out there more? How can you make sure that your name comes up over and over and over again? When I started to work on my business and I started to build my presence on LinkedIn, I remember that a former colleague of mine told me, Sabine, I see you everywhere now. You keep coming up all the time, here, and there, and you were doing a keynote over there, and I saw your LinkedIn post here, and you took part in that event, and so on and so forth. And that's the visibility that you need if you want your name to be handled for the next position that you are looking for that big job that you're dreaming of. It's very unlikely that it happens without visibility. The next one we started to begin to talk about as well. When you are entering more senior levels, you are changing from an operational focus to a strategic focus. So it's this strategic perception that's very important for you to build and to prove. Bring it into conversations that you're having, especially with the key stakeholders, that you understand the strategy, that you are thinking in strategic ways, that you have proposals and ideas for important strategic initiatives, important projects. Go out there and show that you understand the strategic implications of specific projects that are being discussed in your organization at the moment. The next one, focusing on delivery, but not enough on influence. That's exactly what we've been seeing in this difference between your early stage career growth and where you're at right now. The focus on delivery is, of course, always important. Also, senior leaders need to deliver. But senior leaders need to deliver different things. It's no longer just about the amount of output of your work. Now it's around influence, being known as someone who makes the right decisions, being known as someone who has visionary ideas that propel the organization forward. So when we look at this list, you will have noticed already, this is not a competence problem. It's just a presence problem. This is really just about how do you communicate your strength? How do you put yourself out there? And how do you make sure that people keep talking about you for that job that you want to have? And now, of course, I don't just want to leave you with theory, but here are a few first intentions that could be very helpful for where you're at right now. The first intention is, from your current point of view, that my work should speak for itself. You can now have the new intention and say, I want to be intentional about how I am seen. I don't want my work to be seen, if you want to put it like that. I want myself to be seen. I don't want my results to be seen, but I want my expertise and my character to be seen. Another intention can be to move from I need to know more to I want to show up differently. If you consider the times that we're living in, and especially the last couple of weeks, there is a lot of uncertainty always around us. It's extremely rare that we can make decisions that are founded on 100% certainty. So this need of just wanting to know more cannot always be served. You're also losing time by trying to accumulate more and more information. The question is, what amount of information is sufficient for me to move on? And with that, to come across as someone who is confident in the decisions that I'm making, who is confident in an environment of complexity and uncertainty. I have enough expertise. I am ready to make that decision without 100% certainty. And that's also because I have the strategic understanding. I know the potential consequences. I'm aware of the potential risks, and this is how we can mitigate them. There's a huge difference between these two. And it's executive presence that includes this strategic understanding. knowing what risks might be happening and how to mitigate those. The third one that you can pick for yourself could be, I just need confidence, as opposed to, I have grounded self-trust and clarity. So here you can see the difference instantly, right? From I just need confidence, meaning I don't have it yet. I just need confidence and then I will become the senior leader that I want to be. Towards I have grounded self-trust. I trust myself. I trust my decisions. I trust my experience. I trust my capabilities and my skills. And because of that innate trust towards myself, I have clarity. I know exactly what to do next because I trust myself that I can do what I want to do next. I don't need anybody's permission to take the next step. I give myself permission because I know that I'm going to do great. And as you can imagine, this is directly related to self-awareness, right? You need self-awareness to trust yourself. You need self-awareness to have that clarity. And then lastly, moving towards senior executive presence. No longer I'll deliver results, but I create influence. I create influence and I am making sure that through that influence that I have, things are getting done. I create influence and followership. I have the right people around me and they want to follow me. They want to work with me because they trust who I am as a leader. And together, we deliver results bigger than before. So there are a few things that you might have picked up already through or over the last 30 minutes. First of all, ask for perception feedback. Ask others what you want to know about yourself. It could be around when I present, how confident do I come across? It could also be when you met me the first time, what was your first impression? It could also be how self-confident do you think I am in negotiations? Anything like that, anything that you're interested in, ask for perception feedback. And when you do that, please just keep in mind that it's potentially not the most helpful when you ask only people who love you and care about you. It's always flattering to get that kind of feedback from your spouse, from your children, from your parents, from your siblings, people who've known you all your life and who are able to give you a very well-rounded feedback. But when it comes to executive presence, be mindful of who you want to ask for feedback. Maybe even ask a colleague that you're not on best terms with. That will be very interesting feedback because you know that they might probably not give you the feedback you want to hear, but instead it's a feedback that you can grow from, that you can grow with. Because of course, you won't always be able to only impact people who already like you. With executive presence, you want to be able to influence people who don't like you or who don't know you yet, or who are a bit hesitant about who you are because they only made one or two experiences that maybe weren't the best with you. So especially feedback from people who don't love you, who don't care as much about you, that can be the feedback that helps you grow in this direction of executive presence. Then a second important initiative that you can start taking is to strengthen communication under pressure. Take a moment, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and just reflect on the last few critical conversations that you had, or conversations that you were not comfortable with. How did your communication change in those moments as opposed to normal conversations that you have? What impact did that change? And what can you do next time to come across as a strong communicator? To be able to communicate the way that you want to? Then, of course, practice how you show up in a room full of seniors. Doesn't have to be a presentation. But to begin with, how can you involve yourself more into conversations? What can you do to make sure that you're being heard? What can you do to put your name out there, right? This is one of the goals that we have to build executive presence. And lastly, clarify your leadership signature, meaning, who do you want to be as a leader? What is that entire package that you want to build for your executive presence? What do you want to be known for? You can even go a step further and ask yourself, what's the legacy I want to build? When I leave this organization in 10, 15 years, what do I want people to say about me? What do I want to leave behind? Could even be one question that you can put into this small reflection. So there are 3 habits that you can also start building immediately. One of them is simply to pause before you speak. What does that do? When you pause, you are consciously inviting that part of your brain into the conversation that is the logical part, the reasoning part of your brain. That part of the brain gives you clarity and more control over what you're about to say. When you're rushing into conversations, you might not have had the opportunity to actually think about what you want to say. And when we think about executive presence, of course, someone who has executive presence, who builds impact and influence, then it's always good to know what you want to say. Come in as a person who is very conscious of the message they want to bring across. And that's what you can achieve by simply take a pause before you speak. And when we talk about a pause, we're not talking about 30 seconds. A pause can simply be one deep breath and start talking. A pause can just be like this. How long did that take? 3 or 4 seconds? So it's not uncomfortable. But slowing down your pace by allowing yourself to take a few pauses will have an impact that you will recognize. The second habit that you can start building immediately is how to lead with the headline and not the backstory. Just consider, if you want to make an impact, if you want to step into that room and you want people to start talking about you, what can you do? You can come in with the main message that you have. You don't want to start explaining everything that happened in the background. Imagine you only have 30 seconds until somebody else is interrupting you. By the time that somebody interrupted you, you didn't even get to make your main point. In other words, you might have missed your chance to make that impact you could have made in that meeting. Don't allow that to happen. Go in with the most important message that you have. Get people to listen to you. Get them curious. Get them involved with what you want to talk about. And that's what you achieve by going in with the headline and not with the backstory. The last one is regulate yourself before trying to influence the room. It's very related to pausing before speaking. Now, regulating yourself is more than just taking a pause. Regulating yourself is just taking a moment to look inside yourself and tell yourself, I'm ready. And this is what I'm going to do. Be aware of what you're going to do when you want to influence the room. And how you can regulate yourself could, for example, be a simple gesture like putting your feet on the ground, hip width apart, and really feeling your feet on the ground. And then putting yourself into the right posture. Put your shoulders back. Put your head up. Spine straight has a totally different impact on others when they see you like this, as opposed to standing like this, your spine not straight, shoulders to the front. So give yourself a confident posture, and that will give you confidence when you're in the room. So we have a question from Emmett. How can I be more visible at work without sounding like I'm bragging? That's a fantastic question, Emmett. Thank you so much for bringing this in. So ultimately, how can you be more visible? It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be loud. It doesn't have to mean that you have to bring out all of your knowledge and your expertise all the time. Being visible in that sense can simply be that you are there, you are present. When people are asking questions, you are the one who's ready to answer. When somebody doesn't know what to do, you are the one who comes and helps them to do that. When somebody is asking for a specific suggestion or any idea that can be brought forward, you are the one who's bringing something in. Being visible simply means that you are there, that people get the chance to literally see you and know, okay, Emmett is here. This is fantastic. I can rely on Emmett. Whenever I need some input, I can go to Emmett and he is there. And then, of course, once you've basically prepared the ground for that and people know that you're there, then you can start to bring in more of your very specific knowledge. And that's also connected to your ability later on to read the room. So you will know, Emmett, what to say dependent on who is in the room. When you have people in your own profession in the room, it's very different to bring in your expertise because everyone will understand you. They will know the terms that you're using. They will know the context that you're talking about. When you're talking to people who are not from your profession, then take their perspective for a second and ask yourself, how can I bring across my expertise and my knowledge without, as you put it, bragging, without coming across as someone who is arrogant because I'm only talking in terms they don't understand? So basically, how can I use a language that is sending the same message, but in a more subtle way, so that people who are not the experts understand where I'm coming from and they still find insights and knowledge in what I have to say? I hope that that answered your question. It's a matter of practice as well. So you can try different ways and you will see how people are reacting to your visibility. And then you can experiment and try different approaches. And then the one that works best for you, you stick to that for some time. All right. So I have more insights and tips and examples for you for executive presence, how to create self-awareness, how to use your skills and capabilities to create that visibility that you need to go to the next level. And you can scan the QR code if you like, or you go to the homepage that I put there and you will find information there. When you scan the QR code, it will take you to a page where you can then register for my newsletter and I will send you a weekly email with new insights. We have a question. Can you please explain a bit more what is before speaking theory? I am not too sure what you mean, to be very honest. If you could just elaborate on that a bit. I'm more than happy to take that question. I just need a bit more detail, please. How can I make high-value contributions in senior meetings if I'm not the most senior person in the room? Oh, this is fantastic. Emmett, I love that question. So this is probably a false perception that we have oftentimes, and many of us have that. This is a question of entitlement, right? You are basically assuming that you need to be the most senior people or the most senior person in that room to make yourself visible or to contribute. And that's exactly what it's not about. When you're putting it this way, it almost sounds like I don't have permission to speak up when I'm not the most senior person. However, what visibility really is about and what contribution is about is dependent on two main factors here that I would really want you to consider when it comes to this. So for one, when you're in a room with senior people, you have been asked to be in that room with senior people, meaning you are there for a reason. You wouldn't be asked, you wouldn't be invited into that room with senior people if they wouldn't expect you, or the person who invited you wouldn't expect you to add value to that conversation, to add value to that meeting. There is no value if you just sit there and you don't contribute. The value comes, the contribution comes the moment that you start to contribute. You can begin to make you a little bit more comfortable by, for example, just asking a fantastic question. Visibility doesn't always have to be around stating something. Visibility can as well just be around asking a fantastic question that moves the conversation forward, bringing in a new perspective that hasn't been considered in the conversation so far. With that, you find a very nice middle ground between contributing something that might be seen as bragging otherwise and contributing something that creates real value for the conversation. Ask a question and people will turn around and they will look at you and they will say, that's a great question. I haven't even thought about that yet. And if you take it a step further, you can even then, through that, show your expertise, but also your ability to think strategically in a sense of understanding the bigger context, the complexity of what is being discussed. So don't shy away from contributing in those meetings because you have been asked to be there. That was one. And the second one is visibility contributions are not necessarily about having to bring in a piece of information. It can also simply be sitting there and asking the best question. All right. Thank you. There was the addition now around in the previous slide, I said pause before I speak. Okay. So you wanted to know a little bit more about pausing before I speak. Yeah. So ultimately, the main reason why pausing before speaking just really is that, for one, you are giving yourself a short, let's just call it break. You're allowing yourself to consider for a moment what the situation I am in, who is the person that I'm talking to, and what do I want to achieve in this conversation. When you have clarity on these three things, it's much easier for you to bring across what you really want to bring across. It's much easier for you to get a chance at creating that impact you want to create. And naturally, it's much easier to influence that person when you have taken a short pause before you speak to allow yourself to gather your thoughts and then go in with a clear head. And yes, that can be considered a technique to create more visibility. Because if you consider it that way, let's assume two scenarios. One scenario is you are heading into a spontaneous conversation with someone in the hallway, and you just start talking immediately. Now, this conversation is interesting, but you didn't really know what to get out of that conversation. You didn't really have a plan for how this conversation should go. So the two of you part and nobody ever mentions it again. The second scenario is you are meeting the same person in the hallway, but you pause for a moment before you start speaking. And you're asking yourself, who am I talking to right now? What can be something that creates value for that person I'm talking to? So now the big difference is you have a plan for that conversation. And with that, you can create visibility because now that you will create value for the person you're talking to, it's much more likely that that person will walk away and mention that conversation to someone else. So they might be saying, oh, you know what? I just met, allow me to just use the name Anna. I just met Anna in the hallway. And this is what she told me. So now this conversation stuck with that person, and this person is also mentioning your name towards somebody else. So through that, you have created more visibility with these two people already. I hope that this was a better explanation. The second impact, of course, is the one that you're having on yourself, simply because you're allowing yourself to bring in more clarity into that conversation and to feel that you truly had the opportunity to say what you wanted to say and that you're not too rushed. You're not just letting your brain say what your brain says, but you want to have the control over that conversation. All right, now I have another question here. It's a bit longer. Allow me to read it out. As an AI executive, I often ask clients to clearly define their desired outcomes before I build or deliver anything. My challenge is that sometimes clients are unsure or can't fully articulate what they want, but I still need to guide them towards clarity without sounding rigid or arrogant. How can I influence clients to express clear requirements while keeping the communication supportive and professional? This is a wonderful question. Thank you so much. And if you allow me, we can take that into pretty much every other context as well, right? It's not just about customers that you're talking to. It can be any other stakeholder who comes to you. They know they want something. They know that you can create value for them, but they don't really understand what they want. Now, there are multiple reasons for why they don't know. The first reason can simply be that they don't have enough knowledge around what you can do for them. They don't understand that field of, in your particular example, AI, because they are coming to you to do the work for them. It's the same for me, in all honesty. I'm using Claude and ChatGPT every now and then, but beyond that, I have no idea about AI. So if I came to you, I would have a request that might be very broad, simply because I have an idea in my mind and I'm thinking, hey, you can help me with this because you're the executive in this. However, I don't have any understanding of what is actually possible. And that is one of the reasons why I'm not able to articulate myself very well. You are the one who can create that clarity for me by explaining to me what all is actually possible. You are the one who can explain to me, this is what is realistic, this is what is not realistic. This is outcome A, B, and C of the initial request that you have for me. Which option sounds closest to what you're looking for? So, just to put that in a nutshell, ultimately, whenever we want to have a conversation with someone without wanting to brag, for example, without wanting to come across as arrogant about what we're talking about, ask open-ended questions. The huge advantage here, when you ask an open-ended question, is that you are forcing the other person to think. So you are involving them into the conversation a lot more than just asking them closed-ended questions. If they just answer yes, or if they just answer no, it goes back to you, and you are the one who will talk a lot more in this conversation. The more a person talks in a conversation, the more they appreciate the conversation, by the way. So the more you allow your client or your customer to talk, the better that experience will be for them. And by asking them open-ended questions, you're also really involving them a lot more into the creation. But because you have the knowledge and you know what's doable and what's not doable, you can also ask them questions that are guiding them into a specific direction. And open-ended questions barely ever come across as arrogant, simply because you are appreciating the other person's opinion. You're asking them for their point of view. You are involving them into the conversation. So that would definitely be something that I would want to recommend to you. Start by using open-ended questions. And then also every now and then bring in a little bit more of your knowledge, your understanding, your expertise into these questions or little scenarios, so that your client can understand, okay, this is doable and this is not because. So the more they also understand what's not doable, the better it is for them to accept that, for example, their dream outcome isn't a possibility. I hope that helped you. So we have one more question here, which is, if I already do good work, what helps me move from delivering results to having influence? Brilliant. Okay, thank you. So one thing that you can definitely do is imagine you are receiving a task. You have a deadline for this task, you work on this task, you deliver it on the deadline or a little bit before the deadline in the ideal case. Then that chapter is closed for you in the early stages of your career. Now, imagine you want to build influence. You're receiving the task, you have the deadline for the task. First of all, you can now take a look at that task and you can seek a conversation with the person who gave you that task or that project. And you can begin to bring in more of your strategic understanding, for example. So you could say, I've received this task. This is brilliant. How about, again, it's an open-ended question, right? How about we consider A, B, and C? Or how about we add this, this, and that? So that's just a proposal, but it helps the person who gave you that task or that project to understand that you are not just taking the task, but you want to create even more value. You are thinking about what's given to you. You want to make sure that the impact of the task at hand is even bigger. That's one way how you can create influence. Taking that task, taking it back and starting a strategic conversation around what can potentially be improved or added or done better. And the other option that you have is when you are delivering that task, that you are proactively going back and you're saying, now we have delivered this. In a next step, we could do this, this, and that. Or again, ask questions around, how can I embed this into the bigger picture? Now that we have this, have you considered that this, and that is also possible? This is again another way of how you can start to build influence. Simply by bringing in your understanding that a task doesn't end or your piece of work doesn't end here. Much more, it can be the beginning of something much bigger. It can be the beginning of a strategic initiative, for example. And through that, of course, people will recognize you for this. And this is where you will start building influence, meaning the next time that that same person might have a task for you, they might not just give you the task, but they might come to you and they might ask for your opinion first. And this is how it starts to change in that relationship. How can I ask for feedback that helps me understand how others experience my leadership and communication? I'm concerned people may feel pressured to give positive feedback instead of being fully honest. Yeah, and that makes total sense. One very simple way is that you can say that you are looking for things to improve. With that, you basically give people the permission to tell you what to improve. You can even take it a step further and you can say, I'm asking you for your feedback. What I don't want to hear is what I'm already good at. So you can play the confidence card and you can say, I already know what I'm good at. This is not what I want to learn from you. Why I'm coming to you and I'm asking for feedback is because I am looking for things that I'm not good at. I want to find areas for improvement. Please help me find them. So you are very openly giving them the permission to not tell you what you're good at. So that's one very simple way. Another way could be that you are asking somebody else to get that feedback on your behalf. So for example, you could ask a coach or anyone that you work with, could be somebody outside your organization even, to have a conversation with these 3, 4, 5 people to accumulate that feedback and to give it to you anonymously. That way, the people who give you feedback don't have any direct interaction with you. They know that it's being given to you anonymously, and they might be a lot more comfortable giving that feedback to somebody that they potentially also don't know, but also knowing you won't find out who exactly gave you that feedback. So that could be 2 different ways that you could try, Emmett, to get that feedback from others on areas for improvement. All right. Do we have any other final questions? Okay. Well, then this was an hour very well spent. Thank you all so much for being here and for having put in all these amazing questions. I hope that you found value in what I shared with you. And I will have these webinars every 3 weeks going forward. So soon you will have another invitation from me in your inbox. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing you all again. Have a fantastic week and a wonderful weekend. Bye.